Kickoff webinar. My name is Bill Abston. I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas Office of Broadband Development. And I'm pleased to welcome you on behalf of our team. This program was created in 2020 under the Ike Transportation Plan with $85 million dedicated over 10 years to accelerate broadband development in unserved and underserved parts of Kansas. Each round builds on the success of the last, and today we'll outline how round 5 and 6 fit into that long-term strategy. Before we start with all the slides, I'd like to cover a few administrative items. To communicate all the information to you in a reasonable time frame and also to respect everyone's time, we're going to mute everyone, and we want you to submit your questions through the chat session in the meeting application. If we're not able to answer all your questions during the question and answer section, we will commit to answering your questions once we collect them all. Again, thank you for joining us for the Bag 5 program kickoff webinar. We're so excited to see the interest in this program. Next slide, please. Today's webinar will provide an overview of the program, including comparing previous grant programs with Bag 5, the timeline, who and what is eligible, the public comment process, and application details. Joe will discuss the program overview slides next. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much, Bill. Starting with the program overview, next slide, please. The BAG program is currently in year 5, BAG 5.0 of the Ike program, which combines year 5 and year 6 into a single round with $23 million available. It provides funding for broadband infrastructure enabling end user locations with a minimum of 100 over 20 megabytes per second speeds and middle mile if associated with the end user location broadband infrastructure. Again, a total of $23 million in funding is available with maximum individual grant amounts of $2 million per award. Next slide, please. We've launched several grant programs over the last 12 months and wanted to provide a summary of the key features to ensure program transparency. Total funding available in BAG 5.0 is $23 million. Applicant match remains at 50%, and the maximum grant amount has been increased to $2 million. Our desire is to focus on unserved locations that remain. I do want to call out the pre-construction planning, design, or pre-construction engineering costs are ineligible costs, as has been in the case in previous BAG programs. A reminder that the BAG program reimbursement schedule is now via a monthly frequency, and locations eligible for this program are not on the BEAD eligible location list. Next slide, please. Main highlights on this page are that we'll continue to use the FCC Broadband Data Collection Fabric to determine unserved status. Compliance with 2 CFR Part 200 is required, and that being an active participant in federal subsidy program is encouraged, but not required. Josh will now speak to the grant timeline and eligibility criteria selection. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Joe. Next slide, please. For the grant timeline, as you can see, the application window will open today, October 3rd, and closes on October 31st. It includes the public comment window, applicant response, and the whole evaluation selection process that many of you have experienced in the past. Applicant interviews will begin on November 20th. We are targeting announcements after December 17th. Next slide, please. BAG 5 will fund projects that address a critical broadband need in the community, covering unserved locations. The program will also enable affordable and reliable broadband access with speeds of at least 100 by 20 megabits per second, scaling to symmetrical 10 gigabits per second, and will exclude BEAD and encumbered broadband serviceable locations with a focus on serving economically distressed counties that are unserved. Next slide, please. Turning now to eligible areas, the focus is to enable location IDs not served with 100 by 20 megabits per second speeds, and critical needs for the community is proven. Critical investments must be directed to unserved areas and meet the minimum 80% degree of unserved threshold to qualify for grant funding. Middle mile expenses are eligible for funding when it is associated with the last mile enablement. Next slide, please. There are many categories of eligible applicants listed here and range from nonprofits to current broadband providers, including cooperatives, tribal governments, and utilities. I will turn it back over to Joe, who will talk more about financial information and affordability goals. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Josh. Next slide, please. The applicant match is pretty straightforward for BAG 5.0. It's a 50% match for the applicant, with the option of providing a higher match at the applicant's discretion. For the co-investment funds, the minimum co-investment is $1, with the option of providing a greater co-investment amount. Next slide, please. This slide lists the eligible cost within the construction, equipment, supplies, and material categories. Please note that costs incurred after October 3rd, 2025 are eligible for reimbursement. Next slide, please. Ineligible costs range across obligation and debt servicing, administrative operational expenses, and capital assets and infrastructure items. These are pretty straightforward and consistent with past programs. I did want to highlight that the pre-construction planning design or pre-construction engineering associated within the project is ineligible. Next slide, please. For ineligible items, it's clearly focused on specific items prohibited in the 2019 National Defense Authorization Act pertaining to certain telecommunications services and equipment. I will note that this applies for both grant recipients and subcontractors. Next slide, please. For ineligible projects, we've listed public Wi-Fi hotspot connections or locations and digital literacy programs specifically. Next slide, please. We've recently updated our economically distressed definition, so a total of 47 counties are now included in this category. We've combined the America Community Survey, ACS 5-year per capita money income, PCMI, and the Bureau of Economic Analysis per capita personal income, BEA PCPI metrics, so that if either one of these metrics for a county is below the 80% threshold, they are classified as an economically distressed county. Next slide, please. The program affordability goals are to deliver 100 megabits per second speed solution for $60 per month or less for a reasonable amount of time, regardless of whether it's asymmetric or symmetric services. Should the applicant be selected for an interview, the applicant will be asked to define what a reasonable amount of time is during that interview. Josh is now up to discuss the demonstrating project needs section.
Thanks, Joe. The Kansas Office of Broadband desires to provide grant funding to the areas in most need. These areas most in need are the ones that are unserved. The next section will provide the details on how the applications will be processed and evaluated for addressing the unserved areas. Next slide, please. We will be using the FCC's Broadband Data Collection Fabric tool and the underlying service availability information dated December 31st, 2024. We'll also use other data in a supplemental role to help clarify service availability information where there may be questions around what broadband is truly available in a specific area or location. Next slide, please. The high-level approach to evaluating an application's impact to a community is shown on this slide. All data that is being requested and compared against is in a format that all service providers are using today with submitting data into the BDC platform. We're asking for the proposed service area data in a location ID format. Everyone should be familiar with that template and data standards from the BAG 4 and LINK programs. If not, there's more detail in the program guidelines that speak to these specific data fields, formats, and options for each field. Once that data is provided by the applicant, we will then compare that against the BDC service availability data and the fabric to see the application's proposed service area and associated location ID. This, let's see, slide 23, please. This provides a little more detail around what the file submission templates will look like with the location ID format. The data sets provided within the template will be the underlying data that will be compared with the BDC data. Next slide, please. A little more about the degree of unserved and how it's calculated. It's the ratio between total number of unserved location IDs within a proposed service area compared to the total number of location IDs within the proposed service area. The higher the percentage, the greater the need within the community. This program is focused on establishing broadband in areas of significant need. KLBD will only accept applications with a degree of unserved of 80%. Morgan will now speak to the public comment process. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Josh. The public comment process is really designed to provide transparency and encourage community participation. It's a great opportunity for all to review the application and provide feedback, whether it be in support of or expressing concerns about the applications. Public commenters have 4 categories to submit their feedback into, as seen on the slide. In the event there are applications that overlap with one of the 4 listed categories, we will use the application process to resolve. The 4 categories are service areas within projects underway, projects planned, or where broadband already exists, and other. Next slide, please. For service areas with projects underway, we need to see proof that work has indeed started. Items demonstrating proof are listed on the slide. All of these items are required to be submitted to substantiate the public comment. Next slide, please. For service areas with projects planned but not underway, we need to see evidence that the planning has indeed started. All of these items are required to be submitted to substantiate the public comment. Next slide. For service areas where broadband already exists, challengers will need to have speed test information to challenge existing services. Speed test and mapping requirements are listed. Be sure to include all the criteria plus have the 5% of locations included. Next slide, please. The other category is a catch-all for public comment that doesn't fit the other 3. Some examples of an other public comment is provided, plus the process on how it is adjudicated. Next slide, please. So applicant response is an important step in the public comment process. It lets KOBD know that the applicant has reviewed the public comment and allows us to provide additional information to refute the challenger. If there's no applicant response, it does give credence to the challenger's assertions and forces KOBD to only use the public comment information to resolve the challenge. Next slide. For those that submit public comments, we want to ensure that everyone is aware of the public commenter's responsibilities. When public comment is validated for a planned but not started or construction underway project, that causes KOBD to redirect funding away from the proposed project service area. In essence, it prevents an application from moving forward, either in part or in full. To ensure that the application was legitimately paused, KOBD will require quarterly project updates on these projects until the project is completed. A no response to quarterly update requests will cause KOBD to assume there is no program or it is not active. As a result, the ability to submit public comments and applications for other grant programs will be considered for suspension starting from when KOBD's first due date is missed. Next slide, please. If the public comment is accepted, the following items are applications in instances where KOBD denies an application for a grant based on planned but not underway and project underway challenges. 1. KOBD reserves the right to require a bond, letter of commitment, or financial guarantee from providers submitting the challenge. If the challenger does not provide broadband internet service to the planned but not underway proposed project within 18 months, the challenger may not be able to challenge any grant application or apply for any grant programs within the state of Kansas for the following 2 fiscal years, starting from the end of the 18-month period. If the challenger does not provide broadband internet service to the proposed project area of the project underway identified in the public comment within 12 months of the program award, the challenger may not be able to challenge any grant application or apply for any grant programs within the state of Kansas for the following 2 fiscal years, starting from the end of the 12-month period. After grants are awarded, KOBD will require all challengers to provide periodic updates on their respective projects claimed to be in the planned but not underway and projects underway status. If the challenger fails to provide periodic updates to KOBD, the challenger may not be able to challenge any future grant applications or apply for grant programs within the state of Kansas for the following 2 fiscal years, starting from the date of the first periodic update request Due date missed. That was a mouthful, but you get the idea there. To sum this up, we want infrastructure built, but we don't want to invest where a provider has already plans to do so. It's a delicate balance of respecting the challenger's privacy of information provided while ensuring investments are optimized to maximize the broadband footprint. Josh will cover application details for the program. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Morgan. Next slide, please. We've added a capacity assessment requirement for Bag 5. This new section pertains to an applicant's experience with state or federal grant funds and standing with the Kansas Secretary of State's office. Applicants will need to respond to questions and provide a screenshot of a business's status with the Kansas Secretary of State's office. Example to the right in the slideshow. More information can be found in the Bag 5 application user guide on the website. Next slide, please. The Bag 5 application evaluation program will be based on the overall quality of the application, impact of the project will have on the community, and the applicant interview. The application evaluation is weighted at 60%, the impact is weighted at 30%, and the applicant interview is weighted at 10%. Next slide, please. The application evaluation has three components: the application quality, the technical and financial categories weighted at 35, 50, and 15% respectively. Application quality is intended to capture the applicant's goal, why the project is being done, who's involved, and how it will benefit the community. The technical category will give the applicant the opportunity to showcase the technical solution being used, how it addresses the unserved, and the scalability of the solution, and implementation milestones. And last but not least, the financial category that will showcase the applicant's match, co-investment match, budget, and associated spreadsheets, the bill of materials with the necessary equipment details, and the income statements giving KOBD a view to the applicant's financial health. A quick note on your proposed budgets. Please try and limit to your proposed budget lines item percentages to either whole numbers or up to 2 decimal places. If it is more than 2 decimal places, KOBD may need to cure your budget. Next slide, please. The impact evaluation is based on the number of locations to be enabled by the project. Final scores will be assigned by ranking the project's highest to lowest by number of locations passed. Applicant interview evaluations will be based on the overall quality of the application, interview quality, community partner presence and support, and overall benefits of the application to the community with the weighting shown on the slide. Next slide, please. The project priorities are highlighted here and cover items within the project, technical and financial sections. These are all very important items to pay attention to when submitting the application. The geographic distribution item is one that KOBD will be using to ensure grant dollars are distributed fairly across Kansas, and that all parts of Kansas have an opportunity to benefit from this program. Next slide, please. I will be providing an overview of Bag 5 program attestations needed by the applicant. Some of the attestations will look familiar to you because they've been in prior programs, but there are some new ones to cover, so we want to make sure all are covered today in aggregate. This is the first of several slides detailing out the attestations. Moving into the specific attestations. Of course, we require an applicant to be in good financial standing with the state and that there's no pending litigation on previous Kansas-sponsored broadband projects. Additionally, we expect that the applicant is not presently debarred, suspended, proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, or voluntarily excluded from participating in covered transactions by any federal departments or agency. This also applies to the applicant's contractors. Next slide, please. Continuing with the attestations, the applicant must attest to have been operating in the state of Kansas for no fewer than 3 years and has not within a 3-year period preceding this proposal, 1, been convicted of or had a civil judgment rendered against them for the commission of fraud or criminal offense in connection with attempting to obtain or performing a public, federal, state, or local transaction or contract under a public transaction, or 2, had a violation of federal or state antitrust statutes or commission of embezzlement, theft, forgery, bribery, falsification, or destruction of records, making false statements, or receiving stolen property. Next slide, please. Additional attestations include the applicant, 1, not presently indicted criminally or civilly charged by a government entity. 2, not within a 3-year period preceding the application had one or more public transactions terminated for cause or default. Or 3, participating in subsidy programs to optimize digital opportunity. Next slide, please. And wrapping up the final slide of the program attestations, the grant applicant agrees to accept the terms and conditions of the grant agreement at time of application submission. A template grant agreement will be posted to the KOBD website for review. 2, the grant applicant agrees that if awarded funds through the BAG5 program, the grant agreement will be executed within 7 days of receipt for Department of Commerce. If the agreement is not executed within 7 business days, the Kansas Department of Commerce reserves the right to reallocate funds. And 3, all applicants will be required to sign the Department of Commerce confidentiality agreement. Joe will now cover post-award compliance section. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much, Josh. Similar to the BAG4 program post-award compliance activities, monthly reports and closeout report will be required. Next slide, please. Monthly reports will consist of a status update, budget expenditure report, and supporting information for expenditures as needed. Disbursements will be validated and processed will be made as quickly as KOBD can, ideally on a monthly basis. Closeout reporting will involve validating the project and its capabilities, location ID inventory, validation by the third party if necessary, final expenditure reporting, and documenting the highlights of the projects. Next slide, please. If there's a material project change to your project, the grantee must inform KOBD immediately and also provide an update on the monthly report prior to implementation. Concurrently with disclosing the material project change through the monthly report, a change request must be submitted to KOBD documenting the requested change prior to implementation. KOBD must review and approve the change to ensure it's in compliance with the program guidelines and within the scope of the original application. Changes to the implementation plan without advance notification and approval may result in reduced budget and/or clawback auctions. If there is any doubt about the materiality of the change, please engage with KOBD. Failure to engage KOBD to determine materiality prior to the change implementations may also result in a reduced budget and/or clawback.
Joseph, I'm sorry. If you could back up, you have put yourself on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. I think that was an automated thing, it looked like. Here, I'll go ahead and restate that paragraph. Changes to the implementation plan without advance notification and approval may result in reduced budget and/or clawback actions. If there's any doubt about materiality of the change, please engage KOBD. Failure to engage KOBD to determine materiality prior to change implementations may also result in a reduced budget and/or clawback actions. Expenditures incurred without prior approval may be deemed unallowable and will not be reimbursed. Next slide, please. So what are material project changes? Material project changes include deviations from the original fiber route, fiber segments being added or removed, and any fiber facility placements extending outside the defined project area. Regarding the original count of locations, we're really focused on any removal of location IDs that were part of the original plan. Any incremental locations do not need to be improved. However, any removals need to be identified and reviewed. Changing the architecture will require a review given the grants were partially awarded based on the overall solution that was to be built. Electronics and manufacture changes must be reviewed to ensure compliance with the 2019 National Defense Authorization Act. Additionally, changing fiber placement approach, moving from buried to aerial, is also included. And last but not least, total project variance is greater than 10% of the original budget. Next slide, please. And just as a reminder, we want to make sure applicants represent their information in the best possible light and are helping the application reviewers by providing the highest quality content to support the application. Here's a few tips I'll call out to ensure everyone is putting their best foot forward. Make sure to target unserved areas. The unserved areas have a greater need to be connected. The economically distressed areas are a continued focus. There are tremendous economic benefits to enabling digital economy participation where there is none today. The end game is about driving adoption with the end user. Affordability and the associated pricing play a significant role in service adoption. Be sure to emphasize how the application deliverables align with the program priorities. I will now turn it back to Bill.
Oh, Bill, if you are talking, you are on mute too.
Thanks, Joe. Next slide, please. Kansas has made a strong progress toward connectivity, but the work continues. With BEAD construction expected to begin in mid-2026, the BAG program remains an essential bridge, ensuring that communities that are not left waiting for broadband access while larger federal investments are in motion. Our success depends upon collaboration with providers, local governments, cooperatives, and community organizations. I want to thank all of you for your partnership and joining today's discussion. This wraps up the programmatic details for today, and we'll now start answering questions that were submitted via chat during the webinar. For ones that we don't get to, we'll answer them offline, and post them online in the BAG 50 Frequent Asked Questions section on the BAG 5 program page. Morgan, can you please read the first question?
I sure will. Thanks, Bill. Based on what we've heard from our office, there have been some questions already submitted. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe to kind of capture those first before I jump into the chat.
Thank you very much, Morgan. Appreciate that. All right, so we did get a couple of questions prior to this webinar here, and so I will try to answer them here, and I will also go through the chat and answer what we're able to today, but rest assured that whatever questions we should be answering, we'll make sure to get those into an FAQ and post it on the website as well. So one of the very first questions we got, and I think I actually saw a question from you, Pamela, and then a question that just came in right now from Sam. A lot of questions so far about list of locations that are eligible. So to summarize the question that we keep being asked about those locations, right, is will there be a list of eligible locations? With BEAD still going on, is the area could be potentially confusing for those location lists? Will that be coming? So KOBD's response to this is there will not be a BAG 5.0 list of eligible locations. KOBD will provide, prior to the portal opening, an ineligible enforceable commitment list, meaning this is a list of locations that should not be applied for and will be removed if found to be a part of the application. So this list will contain both state and federally funded locations, for example, but not exhaustive, previous BAG, LINK, BEAD programs, etc. That should not be applied for. So again, KOBD is going to be using version 6 of the fabric, as was previously mentioned here in this webinar, to determine and underserved locations that are eligible for funding. This is consistent with how KOBD determined eligible locations in previous BAG programs. If version 7 becomes available for final adjudication, that will be used for final funding eligibility. So hopefully that answers the several questions we got prior to the webinar, the couple of questions that were thrown into chat as well. I'm going to go ahead and answer a couple more questions we got prior to the webinar and then dive specifically into the questions in the chat. So another question we got prior was the $2 million. Does that mean $1 million in investment and $1 million in grant funding, or up to $2 million in grants with $2 million match? So the answer to that question is the BAG 5's maximum individual award of $2 million is for grant funding. As an example, if a total project cost was $3 million and the applicant requested the maximum of $2 million in grant funding, then the applicant's minimum match requirement must be $1 million. Again, that's following the 50% requirement of the program. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the chat, that is a statutory requirement from the Ike legislation. Another question we got prior to the webinar was, does co-investment count towards the match? The answer is yes. Co-investment can offset your applicant match. So just as an example, if you, the applicant, wanted to provide, let's say, 45% of your match against your program application, and you had a co-investor, let's say a chamber of commerce, that wanted to put in the remaining 5% to bring your total match and co-investment amount to be 50%, that is totally allowable and counts towards the 50% match requirement. Okay, I believe that is all the questions I got prior to the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the questions we've been getting in chat, see if I can answer these. I know I answered some of them already with the questions that were responded to just a bit ago. So I'll try to be cognizant of all the questions here and answer as what I can. So is this limited to economically distressed counties only? Great question. So no. However, projects that target other priority areas, such as unserved locations, economically distressed areas, will be scored more favorably. Another question we got is, will unlicensed fixed wireless locations claimed served by 100/20 be considered served in Bag 5? The response to that is no. Let's see here. Will there be a way to serve newly added locations, such as a new house or a location that has not been previously listed in the BDC fabric? KOBD's response at this time is not at this time for Bag 5.0. Let's see, I think I've answered. Can we get a link to this slide? So yes, our slides and recording will be on our website as well. So you can certainly look at that. Let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling through chat here. Thank you for everyone's patience. Okay, Luke, it is our understanding that all BSLs were required to be covered by BEAD. If all of those locations are removed, what would be left for the Bag 5.0 eligible locations? Luke, great question. This is a pretty big misconception, so totally happy to clear that up. BEAD was all about connecting all of the locations that were known to NTIA and KOBD and approved as part of KOBD's BEAD list way back when. I want to say that version of the fabric was version 4. Stephen will keep me honest if I'm wrong there. So at the time when the BEAD list was created, that was based on version 4 information. And so what was identified left was approximately 52,000 locations during that universe of time. Obviously, as we have moved through various versions of the fabric, we are currently today on version 6. We recognize that there are still locations that were left out or for what various different reasons, right? I won't speak to those today. But what has happened is for the BEAD benefit of the bargain round, BEAD benefit of the bargain trued up. I would say it's almost like a mini true up for making sure that the locations that are now served in version 6 that may have not been previously served or designated as served in V4, those were taken off, or I should say made ineligible. Now ineligible is kind of what we're calling it in the BEAD benefit of the bargain round. So that dropped our BEAD eligible list location count to, I want to say, about 26,000, Stephen. So he'll keep me honest again if I'm providing incorrect numbers there. But essentially, BEAD is not supposed to cover every single known BSL in the entire state of Kansas to date that we know of in this universe, right? So really, BEAD is its own list of locations, and whatever is remaining that is still eligible for funding in BEAD, that list is exclusive to the BEAD program and the BEAD program exclusively. So if there was a location, for example, in V6 that is now eligible for funding for whatever reason, maybe it's a new housing development, maybe it went from being a served location to unserved in V6, comparative to B4, that would not have been added because we couldn't add locations during the BEAD benefit of the bargain round. All we could do was adjudicate based on what to remove, but not add new locations to BEAD. So those are the locations that we're talking about that may be eligible today for funding, right? And that's subject to, of course, our public comment period as well, and all sorts of various factors that we talked about during this webinar today. But to summarize, to absolutely summarize, because I just threw a bunch of words out, our BEAD list is its own static list of locations KOBD will make sure that when you submit an application to us, that the locations you're requesting BAG 5.0 funding for is not on our ineligible list, and then we will verify the status of unserved or unserved for that BSL against the current version of the fabric, which today exists as version 6. There will also be a public comment process, as Morgan has spoken to earlier today during the webinar, that will be utilized to ensure that those locations are truly the locations that need to be served, and if not, it will go through the public comment process as listed out earlier today. So hopefully that answers Luke and other questions that may be related to this. Stephen, you've answered Mitchell and Stacy's question about the ineligible list. It will be made available today before the portal opens, or right at the portal opening. Let's see here. Pamela, you had asked if the $2 million cap is per provider or per project. We will get back to you on that. We'll answer that in an FAQ. Rob, you asked, can a portion of the match be in kind? For example, existing dark fiber or existing electronic capacity leveraged solely for the use of the proposed project? We'll certainly answer that in our FAQs and kind of detail a little bit more about pointing those back to the particular program guidelines. Let's see, where else here? And what part of the Bag 5 website? Well, ineligible. It will, I'll probably ask Morgan to send an email out post this webinar, and she'll have probably a link, Morgan, if that's okay, a link to that ineligible list of locations on the website. So appreciate the question there. Will licensed wireless be considered served if they provide over 100 over 20? So Jacob, to answer that, KOBD will recognize licensed and licensed by rule technologies that are are serving 100 over 20. So unlicensed fixed wireless at this point in time is a technology that KOBD will not recognize as served. I think I answered that question a bit ago earlier as well. Any chance for a middle mile or non-location specific portion of Bag 5? Brent, if you're welcome to come off mute if you'd like, or add this question in the chat. Could you clarify what that question means? Are you asking, can you do a middle mile project in Bag 5? Is that what you're asking? Because if that is what you're asking, then yes. I mean, subject to KOBD's review, but yes, as long as there's that end user primary focus. But please clarify if I misunderstood your question, Brent. Devin, I think I answered that question just a bit ago with Jacob. Will licensed by rule fixed wireless locations be served with 100 of 20 be considered served? Okay. Yep, I did answer that. Did I miss a question? I'm like trying to go back and forth with all these screens.
I don't believe so. I've been capturing them.
And I do encourage Brent to reach out. Please, Brent, if you could clarify your question a little bit more, because I just want to make sure I understood your question correctly. Okay. Any other questions? Please feel free to come off mute or throw it into the chat. No, it's okay. Please continue to drive safely. Mark, you're asking, will serve locations by satellite, but not in BEAD considered eligible for Bag 5? So if satellite is claiming a location to be served in Kansas according to the fabric, no, they will not be considered served in Bag 5.0. So if satellite is claiming to serve a location over with 100 over 20 or higher in the fabric, Bag 5 does not consider that as served. No, that is an unserved location, barring other factors that may play into that BSL with other potential technology providers. So no.
Hey, Joe, this is Rob. Is you okay if I go off mute here just a second?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I want to, what you just said, I want to make sure I understand that.
Mhm.
If through BEAD satellite was awarded a location, you're saying through bag 5 that is still an eligible location?
Thank you for that clarifying question. That's a great clarifying question. So my comment was made more generally. If a location is being claimed to be served by satellite, at least with 100/20, that will not be considered, that would be considered eligible for BAG 5.0 funding, unless the satellite serving that location was through a enforceable commitment. So enforceable commitments would then prohibit that location from being eligible to receive BAG funding. So Rob, I think the great point you're trying to drive, and hopefully I'm answering this correctly, is let's say, and I want to be very clear with everyone on this call, 0 decisions have been made by NTIA on our BEADS recommendations at all, 0. But let's say a LEO was officially awarded a BEAD location, right? Then that location would not be eligible for BAG 5.0 funding. That would be correct. But I wouldn't, Rob, I think it's better to not look at the technology that is being proposed for whether it's BEAD or another program. The ineligible list is basically trying to say there is an enforceable and that's why we're calling it the enforceable commitment list, right? If it's an enforceable commitment through a state or federal funds, that location cannot be eligible for BAG 5.0 funding.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Hey, Joseph, quick question along those same lines regarding RDOF. If there was RDOF locations that were awarded based off of wireless technology using unlicensed spectrum, are those considered an enforceable commitment and therefore removed also?
Yes, for BAG 5.0, RDOF, because it is a federal program that is an enforceable commitment on these locations, unless defaulted, yes, that would be considered not eligible for BAG 5.0 funding. Again, the focus right now is if there is an enforceable commitment on that BSL, whether state or federal funds, that would make it ineligible if there was. Hopefully that answers that question. Sam, you asked, can I clarify that you all have already included all the preliminary BEAD award locations with your ineligible BAG 5 location list? Yes, Stephen, keep me honest, but yes, the ineligible enforceable commitment list will include BEAD locations that are eligible for BEAD funding. That is correct. And I heard Stephen say yes, so thank you, Stephen. Brent, asking if there may be an ability to interconnect areas or transport between similar to Link program without funding towards end user facilities or related to BEAD location data. So essentially, I think what you're asking is if BAG can fund partial middle mile funding, if that's correct. I guess you're driving. Well, Brent, how about I do this? Since you're in a position where I don't want you to get pulled over by highway patrol or wherever you may be, we'll answer this in an FAQ for you, and we'll put this publicly. I'll reach out or have the team reach out to you privately to see if we can get the full question so that you don't get pulled over or endanger yourself, and we'll answer that in an FAQ. Okay, so we'll certainly get that answer for you as quickly as possible. Derek, sorry if I missed it, but what was the total number of available locations? Totally fine, Derek. To be clear, we will not be providing a list of eligible locations. What KOBD will provide is a list of ineligible enforceable commitments, whether state or federal, That list should be used by applicants to ensure that they are not applying for a location that is already enforceably committed, whether BEAD, BAG 4.0, etc. And the locations that we will, the data that we will use to validate eligible locations potentially would be version 6 of the FCC's BDC data. And of course, that is all subject to public comment process that we will have put when the application window closes as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Derek. Any other questions in the chat, or please, again, feel free to come off mute. Morgan, are we doing okay on time?
We're doing fine.
Okay. I am not seeing any other chat questions, hands raisings, or anyone else speaking off mute. Oh, okay, one more. What happens if a BEAD applicant decides not to accept a BEAD award? Mark, great question. I can't answer that at this point in time, not because I don't have an answer necessarily, but because that question is a very BEAD programmatic specific question and doesn't relate to BAG. What I can tell you is, regardless of the award status, whether the award has been made, the award is pending, or anything like that, that location currently is a BEAD eligible location, which is enforceably committing that location to the BEAD program. So all 26,000 locations that are currently BEAD eligible would not be eligible for BAG 5.0 funding. And those locations will be on the ineligible enforceable commitment list that will be coming out. So all of those BEAD locations would be ineligible. And I guess I'll just say one thing, since it is a BEAD programmatic question. I can say this from the BEAD side, so switching hats real quick. What happens if a BEAD applicant decides not to accept a BEAD award? Well, I can't speak to the specifics of what will happen, but what I can say is the BEAD program requires the state to get to 100% of its location list, all of its eligible location lists. So based on that notion, there is going to have to be some sort of solution there on the BEAD program side of things. So taking that hat off, BAG 5 hat back on. Any other questions on BAG 5.0? Please feel free to throw more in the chats. Come off mute, raise your hand. And please don't hesitate to email us questions, whether it's to myself, members of the team. Preferably would prefer everyone email kdc_broadband@ks.gov for tracking purposes. But please feel free to email us and ask questions. We will get a response out to your question in a version of an FAQ that will be being posted on the website as soon as we possibly can. So.
And just, to continue consistent communication, know that when we post those, we will email them out, but also we already have it on our radar. And I don't know if Joe said this, so I'm just going to remind folks or announce it, one or the other. We're going to plan to have an industry roundtable next week. So look for that email and then more information on maybe an office hours date the week after. We just want to make sure everyone has a chance to ask questions and make sure their application is as clean as possible prior to that deadline.
Thank you for that reminder, Morgan. Yes, to reiterate, we are going to schedule an industry roundtable. We will announce that in the formal channels, if not already. October 9th, 10:30 a.m. Central. We will start resuming our industry roundtable calls, and then we'll announce an office hours that follows that is specifically for BAG 5.0. So, all right. I think, Morgan, we have bought as much time as possible for people to throw in one more question into the chat or come off mute. So I am now going to turn it back over to Bill to close us out. Bill.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks to the team, the KLBD team, for their excellent work. Thanks for our participants and our applicants We appreciate your time, and without you, we couldn't do this work of bringing broadband access to all of Kansas. We look forward to working together and working through this process. And should you have any questions, please be sure to drop those at KDC_broadband@ks.gov. With that, thanks and have a great day.